I noticed this video made 8 months ago now. Bizarre things about the Chris Watts case. The bizarre things seem like the non-evidence some dwelled on to publicly judge Chris Watts. I will pick the video apart somewhat and can definitely add better bizarre things to ponder in the case. I'm not attempting an exhaustive and complete overview, my apologies. I can add to the description any factual checks that are needed. The following channels offer loads of interesting facts and theories on the case. Both were removed by YouTube at one point but are now returned. The channel Straight Up Blown Minds and the channel Lady Justice Survivor Advocate True Crime channel.
Chris Watts infamously pleaded guilty to murdering his pregnant wife and their 2 young daughters in August 2018. Since then, the story has garnered international attention. These are the most bizarre things about the chilling case.
Chris's first confession in custody was that he killed Shanann after she smothered the girls. He said Shanann had become enraged when it was clear he wanted to end the relationship. This account is in keeping with what can be learned about Shanann Watts, her dysfunctions, and the circumstances at the time of her death. The district attorney flatly refused Chris's first confession. Chris was pressured into a plea deal that included the murder of his girls. There were many incentives to take a plea deal, like the prospect of putting his family through a prolonged, expensive, highly stressful trial with the threat of the death penalty as an outcome. A plea deal means there is no thorough investigation with all evidence and counter-evidence explored, but there is no death penalty. Unlawful things happen in getting suspects to accept plea deals, like telling them there's evidence against them when there isn't. There's indications this happened with Chris. Plea deals are known for easily locking up innocent people.
While to the outside world, Chris and Shanann Watts appeared to have a perfect marriage, their relationship suddenly changed in the weeks leading up to the murders, and Shanann had grown suspicious of her husband.
Let's explore some of the relationship changes referred to. In the weeks leading to the tragedy, Chris was involved in an extramarital affair, which predictably led to changes in him and how he related to Shanann. Shanann's texts revealed she was furious that Chris was not responsive to her advances, and angry when he wouldn't reply when she asked him if he was staying with her because of the children. But this is not the same as a personality transformation, as you will hear claimed. Shanann once described herself as definitely the dominant one in the marriage, and she complained when Chris began new habits like taking fitness into his own hands by reading their food's labels and going jogging. Of note is that no one else described Chris's personality changing, and you'll hear Nicki Swift state Chris seemed his usual happy self with the girls the weekend of the deaths.
Documents released by the Weld County District Attorney's Office on August 7, 2018, Shanann texted one of her friends, "Chris told me last night he's scared to death about this 3rd baby, and he's happy with just Bella and Celeste and doesn't want another baby. He has changed. I don't know who he is."
There are valid reasons Chris might have been scared about a 3rd child. Shanann had proven herself to be a terrible mother who was running the family into bankruptcy again. Having a 3rd child would have made home life beyond stressful and harder for Chris to ever end the marriage, should Shanann continue to be unbearable, which was likely. Chris was praised by Shanann for his Mr. Mom skills in addition to being the real breadwinner. Both sets of grandparents picked up the slack whenever the girls were not in full-time daycare. By the way, it was the Watts grandparents who looked after the girls when Shanann and Chris went on vacation. An honest look at the situation elicits the question, how was having a 3rd child supposed to play out? Shanann texted that Chris said he'd probably go to hell for saying that about the baby. It sounds like he was implying that she should consider terminating the pregnancy and that he was feeling bad about that. This wouldn't be the first time someone in a couple suggested ending a pregnancy due to circumstances being inhospitable to bringing in a child. This can even happen in the case of someone who isn't comfortable with that action. Why did he object to it only then? Chris was notably submissive in the relationship. It's possible that Shanann simply made the decision on her own, or that Chris felt not free to argue against it, or just afraid to disappoint her. So why was Shanann so keen about this third child, making a huge fuss about it on social media and her MLM audiences? A sad reality is that having a baby can be very stimulating for MLM sales and group energy.
It would seem that Chris's behavior toward Shanann became noticeably different, as she also told her friend via text, "I told him last night, I don't feel safe with him after what he said about the baby."
This text from Shanann about not feeling safe carries a lot of weight for some, but let's break it down a bit. Again, Chris said that he was afraid to have a third child and seemed to be implying she should consider a termination of the pregnancy. Knowing this, it's understandable Shanann would have felt very uneasy with him at that moment, but it doesn't prove Chris was showing signs of being prone to violence. She may have felt emotionally unsafe or physically anxious. It could have been a projection. It is on record that Shanann's mother once asked questions that indicated that Shanann had a self-harm risk. Note that Shanann said this to Chris, that she didn't feel safe. She didn't contact someone else to express any actual concern, and no other mentions or steps were ever made. The following is a note signed Chris Watts that was in possession of his mother. I don't know the details of it. It seems to be dated June 2018. To whom it may concern, if anyone gets this letter, I would never do anything to hurt myself or my children or my wife. If anything happens to me, please investigate my wife.
Tragically, less than a week later, Shanann's sense was absolutely correct. Chris did the unthinkable to his family and attempted to cover up the crime by disposing of the bodies at a remote oil field location owned by his employer. During an interview on 2020, Shanann's mother said that she was aware of the change in her son-in-law. Per ABC News, her daughter had told her that the transformation happened over the course of a few weeks, maybe a month. Prior to this personality change, Chris was reportedly a model husband, as Shanann's mom revealed.
He never raised his hand, voice, never cursed at her.
Sadly, no one could know that Chris' transformation would turn deadly. While Googling romance advice isn't necessarily bizarre, the fact that Chris Watts was searching for dating tips while married to Shanann Watts is troubling.
Before marrying Shanann, Chris had virtually no dating experience, and he wasn't learning about normal male-female interactions in his union with her. He had begun a new relationship, and in this context, it's not so bizarre that he was looking up stuff like that. It's strange that the Nicki Swift video doesn't mention how Chris reported that he and Shanann had been briefly separated the previous March, with Chris sleeping in the basement. This was after he unsuccessfully attempted to address with Shanann her bossiness, as he called it. But given Shanann's unwillingness to change and her and the girls' need for Chris's daily care, it seems that all was forgotten and Chris found himself going back to normal family life.
While Chris reportedly met Nicole Kessinger, the coworker he would begin an affair with, in June 2018, the romance seemed to have escalated quickly by the following month. According to People, prosecutors in the case revealed that on July 25th, Chris had Googled "when to say I love you" for the first time in a new relationship. Chris Googled this phrase less than 3 weeks before he murdered his wife, 2 daughters, and unborn son. Obviously, with a Google search like this, it appears that the married man was moving quickly with Kessinger and was ready to take their relationship to the next level. As noted by People, prosecutors have cited Watt's desire for a fresh start with his mistress, coworker Nicole Kessinger, 30, as his motive in the killings.
Chris had also Google searched for apartments with an extra bedroom, apparently for the girls. He indicated afterwards that he had not planned on moving in with Nicole. At the time of the tragedy, Chris was fitter than ever, had no issues getting along with others, and had a very good job. If the marriage ended, he would not be in a desperate situation, as was the case for Shanann, whether or not she was pregnant. A so-called fresh start, in keeping with Chris's actual disposition, would have been to move out on his own, give as much care to the girls as he could with help from his parents, and be single to pursue a new relationship if he wanted. This is in contrast to killing everyone. There was nothing about Chris that indicated he wanted to be rid of his girls. In fact, texts show that his attachment to them notably annoyed Shanann. Shanann texted friends about getting custody of the girls, but this was not realistic. She was incompetent as a primary caregiver and admitted as much. There is evidence family court was even involved in limiting her time with the girls.
While Chris Watts and his mistress, Nicole Kessinger, reportedly met in June 2018 at work, it wasn't long before Kessinger was also turning to Google for romance advice. In her only interview following Chris' arrest, Kessinger told the Denver Post, "We had just met. I barely knew him." However, court documents told a different story. As People reported, Kessinger spent over 2 hours searching Google for wedding dresses just 9 days before Chris killed his wife and 2 daughters. Of course, searching for wedding dresses isn't a crime by any means, but Kessinger's search history suggested that she was incredibly serious about her relationship with Chris, and was already thinking about a future with the man she'd allegedly only been dating for approximately 6 weeks. It's also alleged that Kessinger believed that Chris was single when they started dating.
There was also no evidence that Chris was fervently impassioned with Nicole, beyond the keen interest of a romantic affair. In his interview, Chris touched on having felt some pressure from Nicole, but not being overly committed to the responsibility of his relationship with her. There are no signs to think Chris would choose to kill his family and lamely hide it, as a way to get a fresh start with a new woman. There was no indication he'd had a psychotic break, and no history of violence.
Reported by the Denver Post, Watts said he was separated and at the end of divorce proceedings, Kessinger said. However, Kessinger's search history told a slightly different story. Per People, on July 24th, Kessinger Google searched the phrase, "man I'm having an affair with says he will leave his wife." Her search suggested that she may have known that Chris was yet to split from Shanann, and was hoping that he would leave his spouse to be with her.
Affairs are not normal or ideal. They oppose a purpose of marriage and tend to involve deception. They often come from painful issues and can result in yet more pain. Usually there is a sexual component that brings in more bewilderment. But affairs are not bizarre, especially in an objectively troubled marriage. The description of the affair doesn't sound very unusual. If Nicole overstated how split she thought Chris was from Shanann, that is somewhat understandable, especially if she was terrified of the media judging her, which they did.
In the digital age, it's difficult to conceal information, but Chris Watts found an unusual way to store content he received from his mistress, Nicole Kessinger. Per the discovery documents released by the Weld County District Attorney's Office, Watts had a secret calculator application uploaded to his personal phone. This application, by all appearances, is an operable calculator. When the user enters a secret passcode, the application reveals its true purpose, a concealed storage device for photographs, videos, contacts, even a private browser. Investigators discovered a plethora of hidden photos and messages in the app on Chris's phone, and they noted in the discovery documents, "I'm certain Watts communicated far more with Kessinger than is reflected in his phone data, perhaps facilitated through the secret calculator application." It became apparent he was receiving assorted images of Kessinger, which he then stashed in that application to prevent Shanann from ever seeing them. Basically, it would appear that Chris was living a double life before he murdered his wife and children. When Shanann Watts was killed on August 13th, 2018, she'd just returned from a business trip in the early hours of the morning. Chris Watts had spent the weekend with their daughters, Celeste and Bella, and according to him, they'd had a rather normal time together at home. According to documents released by the Weld County District Attorney's Office, on Sunday, August 12th, 2018, he took his girls to a birthday party. There was a mini pool at the birthday party, and his girls had an epic time. They drove back home after the party, and he gave his girls a shower and put them to bed. Chris also revealed to investigators that earlier in the morning, after watching some television, he took the girls to Target to shop for a birthday gift, and when they got home from running the errand, they ate leftover pizza for lunch. By all accounts, Chris had spent a pretty regular weekend with his two daughters, and there seemed to be no indication of his deviant plan just hours later. In hindsight, Chris's calm behavior during these events was extremely chilling.
So instead of acknowledging that Chris showed no behaviors that point to him being a crazed killer, the video says the inconsistency is extremely chilling.
Watts initially denied murdering his pregnant wife and their children. It later came out that he'd revealed to a coworker his plans to visit the remote oil field in Frederick, Colorado, where his family's bodies would later be found. According to the official case documents, on Sunday, August 12, 2018, at around 5 p.m., Chris texted a coworker in reference to the oil field and wrote, "I'm gonna go straight out there from my house in the morning." When the coworker responded that they had also been planning to visit the site, Chris joked, "I can go out there though. No sense in both of us going out there, LOL." By telling a coworker that he'd be visiting the site early on that Monday morning to complete some checks, many people believed that Chris may have premeditated his actions on that fateful August day.
There are loads of facts and possible scenarios related to both what happened at the house as well as the aftermath. Some of them involve Shanann's parents.
After Chris Watts pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in November 2018, his parents gave an interview to ABC 11 defending their son. Chris's mother, Cindy Watts, said of her son's marriage to Shanann Watts, "It was a very hard relationship. It was a very hard relationship with Shanann as far as I'm concerned. I couldn't do anything right."
It's weird that this is described as defending Chris. Everyone knew that Shanann was difficult. I couldn't do anything right. Could she have said it any nicer? We know Shanann cursed her mother-in-law on social media and told Chris to stop speaking to his parents.
Parents also suggested that it was his marriage to Shanann that changed him. His mom said, "He was in sports from when he was 5 until 17 years old. There's not one person you can talk to that will say anything about this kid. He was normal, he didn't have a temper, he was just easygoing like his dad. He's not a monster." Meanwhile, Chris's dad, Ronnie Watts, also defended his son to ABC 11 and explained, "It's hard for me to believe that he would hurt them girls no matter what. The story he told me that night, I believed it. The way he looked at me, the way he was crying, I believed it."
If he did it all, I can live with it. If he didn't, I want him to fight for it.
Ronnie is referring to the initial story that Chris gave to the police, claiming that he only killed Shanann after discovering that she'd murdered their two daughters. However, this was, of course, later revealed to be untrue.
We know the district attorney rejected Chris's first confession and demanded one that included all charges for that fast-track plea deal.
From prison, Chris Watts reportedly corresponded with author Sherilyn Cadle in a series of letters, phone calls, and meetings, the details of which she subsequently published in the 2019 book Letters from Christopher, The Tragic Confessions of the Watts Family Murders.
Few know that the author had a deal with Chris similar to the district attorney's plea deal. Quote, "He knew if he told me he was blaming something other than himself for the murders, or if he denied that the responsibility of killing Shanann and the girls fell solely on him, and only him, I would not write his story."
Speaking with the Daily Mail, Cadle claimed that Chris had told her, "If I had not met Nicki, I would never have killed my family. All I could feel was now I was free to be with Nicki. Feelings of my love for her was overcoming me. I felt no remorse." According to the author, Chris also revealed, "The darkness inside of me had won. It was still in me though. I thought maybe permanently. I felt evil, swallowed up by this thing inside of me. I felt like I could kill anything and be justified for doing it." Of Chris's mistress, Cadle said, "Christopher says he loved her like he has never loved anyone else before."
That's why I got so emotional right there.
The blog truecrimeanalysis.home.blog did an excellent overview of this strange book, which includes many detailed filled-in blanks from the author. What we hear from Chris's interviews versus his voice in the book are very inconsistent, some note. There are many reasons why a person with innocence would agree to working with an author who states that they will only write about full guilt. Some of them are: a person in solitaire can easily despair to have any voice or meaningful interactions with another, even if lying is involved. Literal brainwashing where no other narrative is acknowledged and this one is rewarded even. It might bring an advantage to his family in some way that we're not aware of.
Murders discovered that he had looked up the lyrics to the Metallica song Battery, per the Weld County District Attorney's Office's discovery documents. Shortly after he committed the horrific act, One of the reasons then that some people speculated that Chris' mistress, Nicole Kessinger, might have allegedly been involved in the murders was that she'd sent him a text soon after the killings had taken place. As author Sherilyn Cadle wrote in her book, Letters from Christopher, The Tragic Confessions of the Watts Family Murders, after Christopher killed his family and drove away, Nicki texted him to look up the song by Metallica band called Battery. I challenge you to look up the full lyrics of this song. I find it interesting that we should believe it's only a coincidence. A few specific lines that are troubling include, smashing through the boundaries, lunacy has found me, cannot stop the battery, pounding out aggression, turns into obsession, cannot kill the battery, cannot kill the family, battery is found in me.
Battery is a popular song by Metallica. The thrasher scene began apparently on Battery Street, and the family referred to were the fans and followers. I agree, it's bizarre.
On August 15, 2018, less than a week after his wife and daughters disappeared, Chris Watts failed a polygraph test. Tammy Lee, an investigator in the case, conducted the test, and as reported by The Tab, Chris Watts didn't just fail his polygraph test. He scored shockingly low.
Failing the polygraph only means it's indicating you're lying about anything during it. Chris was only asked under polygraph if he had made Shanann disappear. They did not ask if he hurt or killed the girls, or even Shanann. A very bizarre fact about the case is that Chris in his defense wanted to know the DNA results taken from the girls, a very crucial part of any murder investigation.
For some reason you feel sick to your stomach, or when people hold stuff inside, it makes you physically ill.
After failing the test, Chris confessed to a version of the truth, which included him alleging that he'd only murdered his wife, Shanann Watts, after she supposedly smothered their 2 daughters. According to iNews, he claimed that she had killed their 2 girls in response to his request for a divorce, and said he had killed her in anger after she did this. However, he later confessed to strangling his wife during a confrontation over the revelations of his affair. Presumably to save face after failing the polygraph test, Chris concocted a story about what happened to his family, which painted him as somewhat of a victim in the proceedings. However, it was later revealed that Chris killed Shanann first, and didn't murder their daughters, Celeste and Bella, until he'd driven to the oil site where their bodies were found. While Watts' mistress has maintained that she believed he was separated from his wife when they met, police discovered a strange piece of information on Kessinger's mobile phone. According to the discovery documents compiled by investigators, data from Kessinger's phone showed that she'd Googled Shanann Watts' name on September 1st, 2017, almost a full year before she started an affair with Chris. In an interview with Crime Online, Weld County District Attorney Michael Rourke said, "The dates to which you are referring, in 2017, where it appears she Googled or otherwise searched Shanann, was data that came off her phone."
Now, I understood that they had an email work relationship prior to meeting in person. Nicole could have been interested in Chris at that time and looked up his life, his wife.
Nicole Kessinger told us that she met and started the relationship with the defendant in 2018. So where that anomaly in the data comes from, I don't know the answer to it. Indeed, the fact that Kessinger reportedly Googled Chris' wife's name in September 2017 seemingly contradicts her own version of events. As the Denver Post, with whom Kessinger gave her only press interview, later reported, one day in the middle of June 2018, he walked into her office to introduce himself. Per Kessinger's account to the outlet, Watts told her that he had 2 daughters, and after Kessinger asked, Watts said he was separated and at the end of divorce proceedings, she said.
This shocked me just as much as I think it shocked the rest of the world.
As well as Googling wedding dresses and the name of Chris Watts' wife, Kessinger also searched online for Amber Fry, the infamous mistress in another high-profile murder case. Fry dated Scott Peterson, who was married. Fry believed that Peterson was single when she met him. Lacey Peterson was 8 months pregnant when she disappeared on Christmas Eve in 2002, and it wasn't until April 2003 that the bodies of Lacey and her unborn child were found. Per the Chris Watts case's discovery documents, Kessinger searched the internet on topics related to Amber Fry. Her searches included Fry's book deal, her net worth, and did people hate Amber Fry. These searches reportedly took place on August 18, 2018, 3 days after Chris confessed to murdering his family. Presumably, Kessinger may have been concerned about what the public perception would be once it was revealed that she was the mistress of a convicted murderer. However, the fact that she Googled Fry's net worth and book deal might also suggest that she may have been hoping to capitalize on her situation. Of course, this is all speculation, and it should be noted that Kessinger voluntarily spoke with police on August 15th, the same day that Chris was arrested. As Kessinger later told the Denver Post, "I just wanted to help. With a pregnant woman and 2 children missing, I was going to do anything that I could." On February 18, 2019, Chris Watts sat down for a 5-hour interview with the Frederick Police Department, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and the FBI, the audio of which was released to the public.
Something intriguing that would have to be verified is that, in fact, the interview the public saw was not the original, but a shortened and heavily edited one, which even included clips of Chris describing a fictional, not real, scenario. And of note is that Shanann's family claimed that they saw surveillance video of Chris taking the bodies to his truck, but when the video was shared afterwards, this wasn't seen at all. Furthermore, after his plea deal, it was announced that Chris had driven the girls to the site alive. Doesn't make sense.
A number of telling revelations during the interview, and he spoke about his former mistress, Nicole. As reported by Oxygen, Chris said, "I'm not sure what you, Nicole, went through afterward. If you had, counseling, if you're in a different state, if you had to leave everything behind." When the investigators asked Chris if he was hoping to speak to Kessinger one day, he replied, "Maybe once, just to say, I'm sorry this all happened." However, Chris's attorney reportedly attempted to contact Kessinger on his behalf, but she refused. During the same interview, Chris also emotionally suggested that if he hadn't begun an affair, he might not have become dissatisfied with his marriage to Shanann Watts. "If I never met Kessinger, would I have ever thought our relationship was bad? Probably not. I never thought I would have strayed away from Shanann."
Now, it isn't unusual that a submissive, abused partner becomes more emboldened to leave a marriage after starting an affair. I have content that displays how Chris was emotionally abused by Shanann Watts, who also mistreated her girls. For Chris to suggest that he may not have become dissatisfied with the marriage had it not been for the affair flies in the face of his other statements and his attempted separation before the affair. I believe Chris was in a state of confusion, plus trying to say what investigators were seeming to wish and expect to hear during their marathon interview with him. I just want to warn you, my video is going to cut out in a minute due to some glitch, but all my content got in. So now I'm saying my goodbyes and thank you.
Many people have watched the Netflix documentary American Murder, The Family Next Door, which pieces together all the events leading up to the crimes. And it would seem that one eagle-eyed viewer of the documentary believed they'd spotted something strange in the background of one video clip. According to the Daily Mail, footage from a police officer's body camera has been getting attention because it appears to show a little girl playing inside the Watts home after Chris' wife and daughters were reported missing. As reported by the site, Arthur Kant took to YouTube to suggest that he'd spotted a ghost in the body cam footage and asked viewers to consider whether it was an apparition of one of Chris' murdered daughters. However, other viewers reportedly suggested that, rather than a ghost, the young girl was simply the daughter of Shanann's friend, Nicole Atkinson, who alerted police when Shanann missed a doctor's appointment and failed to reply to any text messages or phone calls that morning. Atkinson joined police in the house in the search for Shanann, and it seems likely that her children could have been present too. However, as the Daily Mail reported, despite the logical explanation, a few people insisted that